The afternoon sun fell low over the quiet Texas ranch lands, painting the wide fields in shades of amber and gold. Mark Dawson, a man in his late 50s with weathered hands and calm eyes, had finally returned home after months of traveling. His ranch was his peace, his sanctuary. The smell of the dry earth and the sight of the old oak tree near the porch welcomed him, like an old friend. But peace was rarely permanent. As Mark unloaded his pickup, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Excuse me! You can't just park that rust bucket here. This is an HOA community." It was Karen. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her. Her perfect bob haircut, clipboard in hand, and her ability to find fault in the smallest detail had earned her the nickname, HOA Karen. She ran the homeowners association with an iron fist. From grass length to mailbox color, nothing escaped her eye. Mark turned slowly, giving her a polite nod. "Afternoon, ma'am. This here's my land," Karen snorted. "Not with that attitude, it isn't. Your truck is an eyesore. You can't just come back here thinking you can ignore the rules. I'm calling the cops right now." Mark sighed. He had dealt with all kinds of people in his life, but Karen's arrogance was something special. Still, he didn't raise his voice. He simply leaned against his truck, arms crossed, waiting. Minutes later, 2 police cars rolled up the dusty road. Lights flashed, sirens cut off, and officers stepped out. Karen strutted forward like she had already won the battle. "This man is trespassing," she declared loudly. "He doesn't belong here. He's breaking HOA code." One officer looked at Mark, then at Karen. "Ma'am, do you have proof of that?" Karen jabbed a finger toward the ranch house. "Proof? The proof is right there. Look at him. He just showed up after being gone for months, probably squatting. I told you, he's breaking HOA rules." The officers exchanged a look. Mark finally spoke, his tone even, almost amused. "Officers, thank you for coming. I know it's your duty to respond, but before this goes further, maybe it's time Karen here understood exactly who she's dealing with." Karen folded her arms, smirking. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Another rule breaker. And in my neighborhood, we don't tolerate that." Mark's eyes hardened, though his voice stayed calm. "Karen, I oversee HOAs across this entire country. Every single one of them reports back to me. This land isn't just a ranch. It's mine by right and by law. And you? You just called the cops on the one man who decides how every HOA in the United States operates." The air went still. Even the officers froze for a moment. Karen's confident smile faltered, her eyes blinking rapidly. "You... what?" she stammered. Mark stepped forward, the weight of his words pressing down on the moment. "I don't just belong here. I built the standards you claim to enforce. You think your clipboard gives you power? But all it gives you is arrogance. You forgot the one thing that makes a neighborhood worth living in: respect." The officers looked at each other, clearly realizing the call was a waste of their time. One of them sighed. "Ma'am, you might want to reconsider how you handle disputes. This man has every right to be here." Karen's face turned red. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. For the first time, her authority crumbled. Mark didn't gloat. He simply turned back to his truck, pulled out a small bag of horse feed, and walked toward the barn. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got work to do. Ranch doesn't run itself." The officers tipped their hats and left. Karen stood there, stunned, her power slipping through her fingers like sand. But this was only the beginning. The next morning, the ranch was quiet. The sun rose over the fields, casting long shadows across the barn and the fences. Mark was already at work, repairing a gate that had rusted during his time away. He worked with steady hands, humming softly to himself. But Karen wasn't done. She marched down the dirt path with her clipboard tucked under her arm, jaw tight with determination. The humiliation from the day before still burned in her chest. She couldn't accept being shown up, especially not in front of the police. "Listen here," she barked, her heels crunching against the gravel. "I don't care who you think you are. This is my neighborhood, and if you don't follow the rules, you'll regret it." Mark set down his tools and looked at her calmly. "Karen, yesterday should have taught you something. But you're back here again, holding on to control that doesn't belong to you." Karen's voice rose, sharp with anger. "Don't lecture me. I've kept this place in order for years. Without me, it would fall apart. People need rules. They need someone to enforce them. Without the HOA, neighbors let their lawns die, paint their houses ugly colors, and park junk cars in the street. I make sure this place has standards. Mark wiped the sweat from his forehead, then leaned against the fence. There's nothing wrong with standards. But when rules become more important than people, they stop building communities. They start breaking them. Karen laughed bitterly. Easy for you to say. You think being in charge of HOAs nationwide makes you some kind of saint. All it makes you is a bureaucrat in cowboy boots. That hit a nerve, but Mark didn't rise to it. Instead, he let silence hang between them, heavy as the Texas heat. Then, with a firm voice, he said, Karen, the reason I oversee HOAs across the country is because I saw how badly they were being run. I saw families fined into debt for things that didn't matter. I saw communities divided over mailbox paint, and I swore I'd change it. I wanted HOAs to protect neighborhoods, not strangle them. And right now, you're the perfect example of everything that's wrong. Karen's lips trembled. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. Just then, a few neighbors began, gathering nearby, curious about the argument. A young mother carrying a toddler, an older couple walking their dog, and even a teenager with headphones around his neck stopped to watch. They'd all had their run-ins with Karen before. The young mother spoke first, her voice shaking but firm. Mark's right. Last year, Karen fined me $300 because my grass was an inch too tall. I was pregnant and couldn't keep up. That wasn't fair. The older man nodded. And she tried to force us to repaint our house because she said the shade of blue wasn't approved. We've lived here 30 years. That's not community. That's control. Karen's face turned pale. She glanced around, realizing the neighbors she thought she led now stood against her. Mark didn't gloat. He looked at her with something almost like pity. Karen, you wanted order, but you forgot compassion. A neighborhood isn't about perfect lawns and matching mailboxes. It's about people, families, respect. If you can't see that, then you'll always be fighting. And you'll always be alone. The silence stretched. Karen's clipboard slipped from her hands, hitting the dirt with a dull thud. For once, she had no words. The neighbors walked away, murmuring their agreement with Mark. The young mother gave him a grateful smile. Even the teenager nodded in respect before slipping his headphones back on. Karen stood frozen, her world unraveling. Mark picked up his tools again, his voice calm but steady. You have a choice, Karen. You can keep fighting everyone. Or you can start listening. That's how communities grow. She didn't answer. She simply turned and walked away, slower this time. Her pride shattered, but maybe, just maybe, her heart cracked open for change. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned violet, Mark sat on his porch sipping sweet tea. The ranch was quiet again, the way he liked it. He knew Karen's story wasn't over. Change didn't come in a single day, but seeds had been planted, and sometimes that was enough. Power without compassion destroys community. True leadership isn't about control. It's about respect, fairness, and understanding. Rules should serve people, not the other way around. If you've ever had a Karen in your life, someone who tried to control you with rules that don't matter, remember this story. Stand firm, stay respectful, and never let arrogance decide your worth. Share this story with someone who needs the reminder. And let's build communities based on respect, not control.